Hi and welcome to Mod of the Week. This week we're talking about rack systems. When taking a bike out for extended trips, such as on adventure rides or moto camping, it is generally quite difficult to strap on all the equipment you'll need. The most common reason people get racks is to increase the luggage capacity of their bike. In the most basic sense, any rack, regardless of its specific design, is primarily intended to provide additional points for fixing luggage. Though technically the luggage capacity of any bike is defined by the strength of the frame, most of the time, this is considering the weight of the rider plus a passenger. This means that the bike's design assumes that the weight will be applied to the seat, and thus weight transfers to the suspension soundly. Since luggage is usually less dense and far bulkier than a passenger, it isn't very likely going to fit over the seat in the same position. Rack systems serve to transfer the weight of the luggage to the frame appropriately, as well as providing convenient, solid fixing points to ensure luggage is secured safely. Rack systems divide into two parts, a rear top rack for fixing tail bags and pillions, and side racks for fixing saddle bags and side cases. Generally, these are separate components, and many bikes do come with an existing rear rack, though in recent years this has become quite rare, as such components add weight and look tacky to some. Of course, many bikes are unable to fix one or both of these components, particularly race bikes or single-seater bikes. Such bikes often lack a subframe, or an extension of the primary frame designed to support additional weight on the tail of the bike. It is common for riders to purchase rear racks, as most people don't need to carry much luggage on their bikes and just want a bit of extra storage for waterproof layers or snacks on day trips. Rear racks are affordable, fit a lot of simple luggage in a way that isn't too disruptive to most types of riding, as they don't increase the width of your bike or are likely to put bags in harm's way during a crash. Rear racks come in two basic types, an open set of bars for fixing soft luggage and straps, as well as a plate rack for fixing hard components such as a spare gas tank or helmet cases. Depending on your intended use of the rack, you may consider either. However, I would say that it is easier to fix a spare gas can to a bar-style rack than straps to a plate. Generally, rear racks can support weights from 20 to 30 pounds, or 10 to 15 kilograms without risking damage. Should the weight be applied over the rear seat, in the case of pillion and larger bags, you can expect to mount as much as 60 pounds, or 25 kilograms without issue. When it comes to side racks, things get a bit complicated. Most dual sport bikes are designed with the potential for fixing a rear rack, but rarely is there a good method for mounting side racks. Often side racks will require you to sacrifice your passenger pegs, as they make a very good mounting point for holding weight, but not all the time. Generally, you won't be able to carry a passenger with the side racks on anyhow. More often though, side racks hijack the bolts for mounting plastic side covers, which is fine in many cases but not all. Since side cover bolts are only intended to hold the weight of a little bit of plastic, they tend to be quite small and not capable of supporting much weight without stripping threads or bending the bolts. Because of this, most side racks work to shift the weight away from the side cover bolts to connections on a paired rear rack, as well as reducing flexing forces by adding a crossbar between the two racks, so that angular momentum is applied over a wider area or cancelled out between the two sides. This is good, but doesn't help much during crashes, where the most severe forces can break those tiny bolts. This is why many, like myself, modify their frames to hold the largest possible bolts at the side cover mounts, presuming the racks themselves can fit larger bolts, either by welding a larger nut at each location or tapping the existing one. This helps a lot, especially for those racks lacking a crossbar or other weight distribution systems. The most common type of side rack maximizes utility with rectangular boxes for mounting hard cases, or just to make it easy when fixing soft bags. They also have crossbars and substantial weight redistribution systems. These tend to be ugly, like most utility-based things, and not to mention heavy and generally obstructive. Because of this, most riders will only put them on when they need to carry a ton of luggage. And of course these devices can carry quite a bit, but I find it's rather unlikely that you would ever need so much. Even the heaviest loads only weigh in the range of about 100 pounds, 45 kilograms, and this can be mostly covered by the rear rack and pillion. I'll go over this more in detail in a later episode. They are necessary if you want to use hard cases, which many people like for their security and ease when it comes to loading. This makes sense for heavier two-cylinder adventure bikes, which are used less aggressively and can carry large loads without issue. When it comes to the smaller dual sports, I find that soft bags are preferable. This is because they shrink to the size of whatever you put in them, and unlike hard cases, won't dent or break in a crash. Instead, they are only really likely to tear stitching, or when loaded with clothing, actually soften the blow. And so we come to the less common side-by-side rack, those intended for less weight and to give a bit of protection. These racks rarely have a crossbar or link into the passenger pegs. They're comparatively light and often have an attractive overall design. These racks are intended to be a permanent feature on the bike, due to the minimal downsize when it comes to everyday use. My racks, made by PMR, weigh a mere 5 pounds, 2 kilograms, combined. They cause only minimal obstruction to passengers and have a very low footprint overall. Though they cannot hold much weight by themselves, maybe 15 pounds, this is not generally a problem. Properly fixed saddlebags apply most of their weight to the seat rather than the racks, and when filled with clothing, they tend to be light anyhow. As far as protection goes, these side racks help as such. It is common for bikes to locate their battery, electrical components, and coolant reservoir under one of the side panels. Since these are just a bit of plastic and will easily flex under pressure, hard impacts can cause significant damage. Basically, any impact results in a transfer of force to the bike at that location. The plastic side panels won't absorb much before they'll flex, break, and the force will need to be transferred to whatever is underneath. Unless there's a bit of frame right there, the force is going straight for the battery or coolant reservoir. What these racks serve to do is direct that force around these components and to the frame directly. The way these things attach is they attach by connecting to basically 2 bolts which hold on the side plastic. Basically, the side rack would go over this plastic covering, mounting into the seat bolt and then to this little bolt down here. Now, they aren't meant to really hold anything other than just a piece of plastic, so the problem with these side racks, I mean, they are very nice, I do very much like them. The problem with them is they can't really hold any weight and they tend to strip out bolts. So these racks, they can't hold very much weight, so I had an idea. I can increase the size of the bolt required to one that's an M8 rather than an M6, so one that's just a bit bigger if you can compare that. The holes that they've made are actually big enough that you could fit one of those in there. I'm going to put in one of these nuts, and see if that works well. There we go. So much sturdier. Let's see, here's my MOTW mount. Actually, I thought it was going to be kind of an eyesore, but actually it doesn't really. Looks fine to me.